Let's be honest, half the AC titles don't feel like classic Assassin's Creed games. In some, I can blend into crowds and slowly work my way towards my targets, but in others, the second I even try to attempt some stealth, I get dragged into open combat. So in today's video, I'm ranking every mainline Assassin's Creed game based on how well it handles stealth. Let's just jump straight on in. Yes, first on this list, as you probably guessed, is one of the RPG games, and just to say, I do like Odyssey, but the stealth is easily the worst in the series. To start, we just don't have very many stealth mechanics to work with. Our hidden blade is gone, replaced mechanically by the broken spear of Leonidas, no real issue there, although we sadly don't have the classic Assassin's Creed double takedown. Tool-wise, we don't have our usual gadgets like smoke bombs or sleep darts. Instead, this role is partially replaced by our bow, of course able to take out enemies silently, but with a small number of bow abilities to aid that stealth, like shooting through walls, hitting multiple targets and more, as well as different arrow types like poison, fire and stun shots. And lastly, we also have our bird Icarus, which can scan over areas and highlight enemies. This is a strange, albeit cool feature, but was implemented to replace our eagle vision, the ability that allows us to scan through walls, see targets and more. Now that isn't a huge number of mechanics, but that isn't really Odyssey's main problem, which is its level scaling. Because Odyssey is a massive RPG, they've opted for a level gating system, meaning different areas of the map are going to have stronger and stronger enemies. Now don't get me totally wrong here, in theory I like this in lots of RPG games, but it does mean that really, stealth isn't a viable option in Odyssey, or at least it isn't unless you truly do complete side mission after side mission. Like most RPGs, Odyssey has an ability tree where you're able to improve your stealth, combat and parkour abilities as you level up. This means that as you progress, you can opt to have a stealth build, giving you new abilities and boosting your stats. However, even if you do opt for stealth abilities first in Odyssey, the world really isn't going to help you sneak about either. As Assassin's Creed opted for larger worlds, taking us out of dense dynamic cities, this essentially means a drop in our stealth opportunities. You'll struggle to sneak up on enemies, won't have as many opportunities to hide if you do get spotted, and even on top of that, the detection system is so broken, it's very likely that a lot of the time you'll be spotted by doing the most minimal thing. Now, after all of that, stealth isn't impossible. You can for sure carefully sneak around forts and take out most enemies, as long as you're a high enough level, but that just isn't what the game is designed for, and to be honest, that's okay. I never expected a massive open world RPG to be good at stealth, although Shadows totally broke out of that mold, we'll get into that later, and whilst overall I enjoy Odyssey as a game, its stealth for me is seriously lacking, deserving a score of 2 out of 10 and its spot in last place. So sliding into 13th place, we have a personal favourite of mine, Assassin's Creed Origins. This was obviously the predecessor to Odyssey, however stealth was something it did just a little bit better than its sequel. To start, we do have a few tools. You of course have your hidden blade, and in fact Origins explains the fun lore of why assassins chop off their finger, plus 4 different types of bows, the Predator bow being the one you'd most likely choose for stealth, able to deal the most damage with the most range, and sleep darts, poison knives, smoke bombs and fire bombs, the first 3 being actually useful for stealth, as well as a few passive mechanics like the ability to hide in bushes and whistling to lure guards, as well as your scouting eagle, now called Senu, again there to replace your lost eagle vision. As you progress, you'll start unlocking new skills, a personal favourite of mine being the one where you manually control an arrow from the Predator bow, along with other abilities like a second assassination, although it's not that classic AC style, but most of these upgrades are passive, and whilst you can upgrade your hidden blade and weapons too, leveling in Origins is really slow, which means these improvements take a while to properly pay off. There are definitely opportunities to use stealth, especially when infiltrating large forts, and I found that things like sleep darts and the Predator bow can actually shine in those moments, but just like Odyssey, the level scaling drags the whole system down. In a lot of cases, you simply can't assassinate stronger enemies, and even weaker ones might survive depending on the level gap, and that becomes a huge barrier to really committing to stealth. The other big issue, and the RPG 3 all suffer from this trend, is that the enemy detection is also just super overdone. Even if you want to attempt stealth in Origins, just like Odyssey, the smallest wrong move will get you spotted. That's not to say there aren't any stealth opportunities, because there are, but for the most part, the huge and gorgeous world of ancient Egypt is just too open and lacking in actual cover to provide many stealth circumstances. And whilst our skills and abilities improve as you progress, the level gating and speed at which you'll actually level up a lot of the time is just going to hold you back, giving Origins Stealth a score of 3 out of 10. I truly do love Origins though, and if you've ever wondered about playing it, you can check out my 2025 review, hopefully on screen now and down in the description below. I do have a bit of a soft spot for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but like its forerunners, stealth is something you won't find yourself using too much. Whilst our skills, tools and abilities are pretty similar to Origins, we have the Hidden Blade, we can complete double assassinations, though with a throwing axe, there are passive mechanics like hay assassinations and hiding in bushes, and we also have a variety of bows including the infamous long-range predator bow, although our mid-range hunter bow can also be used for stealth too. Like our predecessors, there are various skills we'll unlock to improve our stealth, a few more than we had in Origins and Odyssey, the best examples of this being Blinding Rush, an ability where we essentially pause time, Explosive Corpse, turning a dead body into a trap, and Feigned Death, so you can assassinate someone by pretending to be deceased. But Valhalla has something the other games don't have, and that is social stealth. Our hood is back, allowing us to move more freely than if we weren't wearing it. We can disguise ourselves amongst crowds, we have hiding on benches or tables, and mechanics even like pretending to be a blacksmith or interacting with the wasted locals to distract the guards. Whilst we also have a bird again to scout and scan areas, now known as Sinin, our eagle vision has returned, in Valhalla known as Odin's Sight, which is welcomed, but it isn't also as fluid as it should be. Because we have Odin's Sight, Sinin is downgraded, it doesn't have the same tagging ability as Origins and Odyssey, but Odin's Sight sadly also just doesn't work as well as you'd hope. It sort of went back to the original version from AC1, rather than focusing on the improved eagle vision from later games, and we'll get into all that later. These aren't massive changes compared to Origins and Odyssey, but the big difference here is that the level scaling is way toned down, in fact too much so. One of my biggest issues with Valhalla is that in general, after 50 hours, everything becomes way too easy. The detection system, also like Origins and Odyssey, totally misses the mark, even so much so that if you are detected, Eivor won't attempt to even try and hide again, his hood will come off and his axes will come out, and you are straight into combat mode. I would say compared to Origins and Odyssey, our world is a little more built for stealth, in that towns and cities are denser with more opportunities to hide in and alternative routes to get around, but it's still nothing like it was in the earlier titles. Overall, Valhalla gives you a stealth experience that is better than its RPG counterparts, but also which just isn't really worth it. Combat is so fleshed out with loads more weapons and abilities, and that truly is what the game is centered around, leaving the stealth in Valhalla feeling somewhat as an afterthought, deserving an overall score of 3.5 and its place near the bottom. Considering this was the sequel to the Ezio trilogy, stealth is something it bizarrely got really wrong. Whilst we have a good variety of tools, including smoke bombs, poison darts, and 2 new weapons, rope darts, which are super fun to literally hang your enemies with, and a bow and arrow, none of them ever really work that well. The bow and arrow in particular is so underwhelming, with it not just being slow firing, but with the aiming icon often being not accurate, with the smoke bombs and the darts also feeling pretty underwhelming and unable to be fired very far either. Even trying to choose these tools is really long-winded too. You'll find yourself scrolling down the extensive choice wheel to then accidentally just throw some coins on the floor. We do have some passive mechanics. A whistle was added to the remastered version of AC3, so you can lure guards over, and you can still hide and crouch in bushes, but my personal favourites include doing running, jumping takedowns with any weapon, and also being able to pick up a musket, ram it through the back of an enemy, and then shoot the dude behind them too. Social stealth does exist in AC3, but it's incredibly minimal, in that the only real thing you can do is blend into and walk alongside crowds. It does vary itself slightly, adding some nice animations of Connor actually pretending to be an NPC, but there are sadly very limited opportunities to actually use this. On a more positive note, we do still have assassin recruits. Whilst they're not as good as previous games, they can still be pretty cool, creating distractions and riots, and later on being able to upgrade them to use smoke bombs, but for the most part they're often better to aid you in combat rather than to support you from actually stealthing through the game. Our world, I will say though, is pretty awesome for stealth. The tree parkour, which is amazing, often allows you to creep right up to your enemy. There are lots of crowds and hiding spots throughout. The two major cities are full of close-knit buildings for you to observe and strike from above, and even the frontier, obviously as a forest, is full of foliage for you to hide in and assassinate from. My biggest complaint with AC3 Stealth though is that the detection system is just way off. Oftentimes you'll be instantly spotted from miles away when you haven't even peeked your head out, or you'll find you can assassinate an entire patrol in a matter of seconds simply just by being behind them. There is no in between, which makes trying stealth in AC3 a very up and down sort of scenario. Overall, stealth in Assassin's Creed 3 is a little bit like Valhalla's. There are some mechanics for you to attempt it, but it doesn't all work very well, but there is really no need for it as the game is centered around its combat, which granted is friggin' awesome, but we're ranking the stealth here, and for me, AC3 barely scrapes past Valhalla's with a score of 4 out of 10. Time to take it back to where it all started, and as this is the first game in the series, you'd expect it to really be the worst at stealth, seeing as the mechanics were all new and had nothing to base themselves off. But whilst this game is now nearing a whopping 20 years old, stealth was something it actually did pretty well considering the circumstances. At its core, stealth revolves around social blending and timing rather than gadgets or flashy abilities. Our only tools are throwing knives and the hidden blade, both of them at times somewhat slow and unsatisfying to use. The throwing knives have a lock-on ability, but we do have some passive abilities to accompany them. AC1 introduced Eagle Vision, although this did weirdly turn it into first person, and you could only use it at full health. I guess the idea here is that Altair is super focused whilst using it. The game also introduced social stealth too. There aren't many opportunities, but we can blend into some crowds by walking slowly with scholars or sitting on benches. And our world too, whilst full of ambience, doesn't have a huge amount on offer to aid your stealth. The parkour paths, to be fair, are great to get closer to enemies from above, and there are also haystacks you can hide in too, but whilst we don't have a lot on offer mechanically, stealth is based more on how the world reacts to our movement. Guards will actually react to you dependent on what you're doing, so if you're climbing or sprinting, they'll notice you, and it really emphasises the idea of hiding in plain sight and not drawing too much attention to yourself, forcing you to act naturally. It's simple but methodical, and in many ways is quite distinguished compared to other AC games, where in many, you could climb up a building beside enemies and they wouldn't even bat an eye. That said, there definitely are limitations. The detection system is somewhat lacking, you're either hidden or fully detected, with not much nuance in between, and once enemies are alerted to your presence, stealth pretty much ends. You can't really re-hide mid-encounter like you can in later games. The crowd blending at times can also feel clunky, especially if the scholars you're walking with stop or get stuck, and outside of throwing knives, as you don't have any real tool variety, your missions tend to play out in very similar ways, and in fact one of my biggest criticisms of AC1 as a whole is that the gameplay in general is quite repetitive. But despite that, AC1 stealth is surprisingly strong for its time. It's slower and heavily reliant on environmental awareness, but it laid some foundation for the series' identity, blending into crowds, striking unseen, and disappearing before anyone knows what's happened, making me give it a score of 4.5 out of 10. Ultimately, despite its simplicity, I think it deserves our respect. In 9th place, we have arguably the most famous Assassin's Creed installment, and this was a massive improvement compared to its predecessor. We still have all the foundational elements from AC1, Eagle Vision, crowd blending, benches, haystacks, throwing knives, and of course the hidden blade, with all of it being improved and some minor changes made, but the toolkit is also expanded in a lot of meaningful ways. The game introduces smoke bombs, a mechanic which in some formats has been in almost every Assassin's Creed since, and this is a complete game changer for escaping or setting up kills. The throwing knives return, however feeling a lot more integrated and reliable for ranged kills, and another bigger addition, although not at all, is the double assassination, arguably one of the most iconic elements of Assassin's Creed, now able to take out 2 enemies at once, massively changing how you approach guarded areas. They even introduced the hidden gun in AC2, which was a cool idea, however it is very slow to fire and obviously isn't silent either, so is really something you'd only use during combat or if you had just a single person to take out. There is also the new notoriety system, another iconic AC mechanic, so the more chaos you cause, the more wanted you become, making the guards pay more attention with them now able to spot you faster, which is countered by pulling down wanted posters, bribing heralds, or assassinating corrupt officials to lower your notoriety. This gives the stealth a sense of weight and consequence, so rather than thinking, I'll just assassinate these guys in front of a huge crowd, it makes way more sense to take them out without being spotted. And whilst the blending mechanic isn't particularly different, the number of crowds are massively increased, giving you way more opportunities to blend naturally and stalk your targets. On top of that, we can now also interact with NPCs to create distractions or even take people out, so courtesans to distract guards, thieves to create diversions, or mercenaries to charge in and clear paths, adding extra layers on how you approach each objective. It does suffer from some of the drawbacks from AC1, the detection is very unforgiving, and once you're spotted, there's again limited opportunity to re-hide mid-fight, although the smoke bombs do help a lot with this, but if you don't have these, you are going to struggle to maneuver into a hiding spot and re-attempt your stealth scenario. Overall though, AC2 marked a huge leap forward. It built on AC1's foundation, introduced meaningful tools, and takes full advantage of vibrant cities and the density of crowds to make stealth feel more alive. Like AC1, it still relies more on movement, timing, and blending, and it's not the most refined system, but it truly shaped almost every AC game that came after it, deserving its score of 5 out of 10, with its influence still felt today. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood really lives up to its name here, as its stealth system is literally AC2's cooler older brother. We still have smoke bombs, eagle vision, throwing knives, double assassinations, social stealth like blending and hiring courtesans, the notoriety system, haystack hiding, everything you'd expect, but we also had some refinement too. There are quite a number of extra mechanics. We can now throw 5 knives at once, assassinate someone from jumping off your horse and onto theirs, attracting enemies using dead bodies and more. They truly looked at everything they had on offer in AC2 and then went that one step further. The hidden gun is now far more useful, being a lot quicker to fire and perfect to use when clearing out lots of enemies, and whilst it's not the smartest weapon for stealth, the new crossbow definitely is. This thing can take out any enemy from quite a fair distance, is fast firing, and can carry a max of 25 rounds, which feels like it never runs out. If I'm honest, if anything, the crossbow is kind of overpowered. It really becomes your main tool for stealth, even more so than your hidden blade, but this doesn't detract from my enjoyment in any way. What's more, they even gave Ezio a parachute in Brotherhood which carried into Revelations, allowing you to soar over buildings and infiltrate areas in a fun and unique way. Whilst personally it's a mechanic I don't use often, it's still a solid addition to our movement arsenal. What truly makes the stealth in Brotherhood so great though is our assassin recruits. It is so satisfying to have a bunch of your own assassins appear out of nowhere and kill everyone in sight, and even more gratifying is the Arrow Storm ability, where you'll hold LB and a mass of arrows from your assassins will take out large groups of enemies. This isn't unlimited, it will take some time to recharge, but it really does make you feel like you're living the Brotherhood trailer. A lot of the missions in Brotherhood actually feel well designed for stealth too, definitely more so than anything we'd had so far, so whether that's the mission where you have to tail a banker and then you're prompted to assassinate him by blending in with the locals at his party, or the mission where you have to infiltrate a prison and rescue Katarina, and the Leonardo missions too each have an opening moment of stealth as well. That isn't to say stealth is perfect, all of the Ezio games are missing a cover and crouch system, and the running stealth takedowns in particular do break things for you immersion wise, with the throwing knives in my opinion being a little bit hit and miss, but to many, Brotherhood represents the peak of classic AC stealth era, and I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. It takes everything AC2 did, makes it smoother and more flexible, and layers on the Brotherhood mechanics that make you feel like a true hidden leader of the assassins. On to the finale of the Ezio trilogy, and this is going to be a bit of a shorter entry because this truly did not change a lot compared to its predecessors. I won't list everything again, all of our tools and mechanics still remain from before, with a few new bonuses. One change here was to improve Eagle Vision, now known as Eagle Sense, actually able to now track enemies and pick up their individual trails, making tailing much easier, and it featured quite heavily in a lot of missions too. This was only really replicated again in Unity, and it's a shame as this is a cool mechanic which I personally really enjoyed. An actual new tool, and something we've never seen in any game since, is the bomb crafting system. This is easily the most unique mechanic in the game. You can create different types of bombs using ingredients found throughout Constantinople, and there are 3 categories, so lethal, tactical, and diversion, each with their own set of bombs within them. This system massively expands your stealth toolbox, so instead of relying purely on smoke bombs, you can tailor your approach. Want to silently lure a guard and pick him off in an alley? Cherry bomb. Need to escape a tight situation? Stun bomb and vanish into a crowd. It's a surprisingly flexible system, and something that a lot of people never really use to its full potential. The other notable addition, although not strictly relating to stealth, is the hook blade, allowing for faster, smoother parkour and to use the zip lines, helping to keep us on the roofs and off the street level a lot more easily, supporting a stealthier playstyle. Like the bomb system and Eagle Sense, this is another mechanic that we sadly never got to see in any other Assassin's Creed game. In terms of our world, Constantinople feels a lot denser than our previous locations, offering more crowd blending and rooftop options, but other than that, Eagle Vision and the bomb crafting system, the stealth hasn't changed too much to its predecessor, and that's a good thing. Revelations doesn't revolutionize stealth, but it does refine and expand it. It's Brotherhood system with some extra toys, and it's definitely the most tactically flexible stealth that we've had so far, making me score it at a 6.5. If Brotherhood was AC2's cooler older brother, Revelations is the geeky one, giving you some fun new ways to get the job done. We now sail into one of the most iconic entries in the series, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now, stealth in Black Flag in a lot of ways is a return to that familiar classic Ezio trilogy vibe. It's all about blending in, keeping a low profile, and using the environment to your advantage. Tool-wise, Edward's arsenal is pretty stacked. You've got sleep darts to silently knock out guards, berserk darts to make them turn on each other, and of course smoke bombs to get out of trouble or set up a chain kill. You can even throw money on the ground to cause a bit of chaos, which is never something I use too often. My pirate wants to keep his gold, not throw it away, but it can be a useful distraction when needed. Social stealth plays a big part in Black Flag 2, whether that's walking through crowds, of which there are tons of NPCs here by the way, hiring dancers to stick by your side, or just timing your movements well enough to slip past patrols without anyone batting an eye. The setting of the West Indies also aids this kind of stealth really well too. You've got jungles, rooftops and busy city streets to work with, and the game gives you plenty of different routes to take for an assassination. One small but brilliant feature they added is the ability to peek out of bushes to lure enemies in. It's such a simple thing, but it makes sneaking through the jungle feel way more interactive, and kind of amusing to pop out like a little meerkat to eventually kill and drag your enemy into the foliage. The actual mission structure centers around stealth a lot too. Now this is often the big complaint about Black Flag in that there are too many tailing missions. In fact, 25% of them will have you stalking someone, but it means you really are encouraged to use everything in your stealth arsenal, as well as really pay attention to your timing too. So whilst I understand the negativity, they are really great excuses to master everything at your disposal. AC3 was ranked several games before this, and to me it really feels like Ubisoft listened to the feedback from that and made stealth a core focus of Black Flag. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, it blends parts of the older games and adds a few new ideas, but within the setting and mission design it's a really solid attempt at stealth, deserving a score of 7 out of 10 and its spot in 6th place. Now on to the Templar black sheep of the AC family, Assassin's Creed Rogue. I won't bother talking about the world. Whilst a different location, it all feels very Black Flag-esque. Same with all our passive mechanics too, but in terms of tools and enemy types, they actually made some pretty big changes. The first addition they made, and it's a game changer, is our brand new air rifle. Gone are the blow darts Edward used, replaced with a spanking new rifle that means you can now send targets to sleep, make them berserk, or shoot firecrackers to distract people when needed. Whilst a lot of these elements have been in AC games before, the addition of having them in a long-range gun is something I absolutely love. The range on this makes it feel almost like a sniper rifle, and I found this truly was the bread and butter of stealth in Rogue, which I used in every single scenario. Later on, we then also get an upgrade to this gun in the form of a frigging grenade launcher. This is granted very similar to the rifle, it has sleep and berserk elements, but these bombs have a wide area, meaning you can send multiple people to sleep or turn groups of people insane, as well as the addition of the shrapnel grenade for taking out large groups of enemies at once. Shay is truly the longest range fighter we've had so far, and it kind of encourages me that a World War I/World War II Assassin's Creed game could definitely work if Ubisoft did ever think about developing it. Another big change, and a very positive one at that, is our new enemy type known as Stalkers. These are essentially assassins who are hunting you, but you'll know when they're close as you'll start to hear a whisper. Using eagle vision, you can then locate them using a compass, but be careful not to get too close as that'll make them pounce at you. I truly love this new enemy as they act exactly like we would as an assassin, hiding in bushes, watching from rooftops and sneaking through crowds. This is something I actually wish had been carried over to future games, and it reminds you that you are now a Templar and the assassins want you dead. These additions are awesome, but the stealth isn't perfect either. Detection in this game to me can often feel kind of off. Guards can spot you from ages away even if you're behind cover, and I actually felt like detection was easier or more solidified in Black Flag, probably due to the fact that this game was kind of rushed out of the gate. But all in all, Rogue has a really decent stealth system. It's probably the biggest highlight of the game, deserving its score of 7.5 out of 10 and in 5th place. If you've always wondered about playing it, you can check out my review on screen now and down in the description. On to the new kid on the block, we have Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now you can obviously play as two characters, Naui and Yasuke, but as Yasuke doesn't really have any stealth capabilities, I'm not going to focus on him here. Let's kick things off with our tools, and we have a decent amount of them. Your kunai is likely to be the tool you'll use the most, able to kill most enemies in a single shot from a decent range, but we also have smoke bombs, doing exactly what you'd expect them to, shuriken, which whilst they won't kill anyone outright, can be used to take out various objects that'll help to spot you, and we also have a bell which you can use to distract or lure enemies with. Whilst our tools are somewhat pretty standard, there's nothing crazy like bomb creation from Revelations or a rifle from Rogue, it's the passive mechanics and the world where the stealth really shines. There is a whole light and dark system in Shadows, literally living up to its name, where you can use the darkness to aid your stealth. If it's pitch black, you'll be able to sneak around with next to no interruptions, but if there is a lantern in the distance, be sure to take that out so enemies can't see you. Shadows also actually tracks how visible and noisy you are, so sprinting across a noisy rooftop will get attention focused on you. This is honestly kind of revolutionary, truly making you think more tactically about how and where you move. We've had a crouch button in Assassin's Creed since Unity, but another passive mechanic they added into Shadows was the ability to crawl, with different lengths of grass throughout too, so you could be crouch walking along and then have to start crawling to remain hidden. This isn't a game-changing feature, but it's another string to your bow, really making Naui feel like a true stealthy shinobi. And on top of that, the environment really aids stealth too. We've got boxes to hide in and assassinate from, we have ponds you can crawl through using a reed to keep breathing, you can assassinate people through shoji doors, and there are different entry points into most large buildings too, able to access the roof via a small hatch, or crawl underneath smaller buildings to really sneak up on your enemies. Eagle vision is now the sole focus, removing our friendly pet bird from the RPG trilogy, delivering the same core mechanics from the earlier games and more. Enemies will be highlighted in red, non-hostiles will show up as orange, but besides people, you'll also be able to see objects and locations of interest. And finally, one thing they added to Naui after the Claws of Awaji DLC is her bow staff, which isn't just an awesome weapon. It has a huge stealth perk too, in that when using it and assassinating someone, you're then able to carry out a further 3 assassinations, hop, skipping and jumping towards different enemies. This is an awesome mechanic which really does make the bowstaff the ultimate weapon for stealth. Naoi is truly much weaker than her samurai friend Yasuke. Stealth is something she really has to use in order to survive. You can't just charge straight in and demolish everyone like Yasuke can, making stealth a vital part of the gameplay and not just an aspect you can choose not to take part in. Overall, Shadow's stealth is incredibly impressive, especially when you factor in it's a massive RPG. Between the light and sound mechanics, the new movement options, the toolset and world design, it actually encourages you to play stealthily. It's deliberate, layered, and is truly one of the major highlights of the game, very worthy of a score of 8, and in my opinion has one of the best stealth systems in the series. Now, Unity is usually hailed as having 2 things: the worst launch in gaming history, and one of the strongest stealth mechanics in the entire series. In terms of tools, the big new addition is the Phantom Blade, an upgrade to your Hidden Blade, a projectile weapon allowing you to take out enemies silently at a short to mid-range distance. An Assassin's Creed game needs to have a silent projectile in some format, and this one is extra fantastic as it can be fired in quick succession too, locking on to enemies automatically. You also have the Berserk Blade, a device used for ultimately turning your enemies insane and getting them to attack anyone in sight, as well as smoke bombs and cherry bombs, both designed to distract and help with evasion. We also have stun grenades, the ability to drop money and poison gas, and these 3 personally I think are pretty useless, but I'm still glad they're here as it keeps everything nice and varied. The AI in this game are super alert, making you definitely need to plan your route dependent on the tools you have on hand. Unity actually introduced a brand new detection system too, showing enemies exactly where they last spotted you, which can always be used to your advantage. The Eagle Vision in Unity is also one of the strongest in the series. Once you've spotted an enemy, they will stay highlighted for a few seconds in red, actually allowing you to track their movements after you've used it. It can also show the paths taken by certain patrolling enemies and targets, perfect for avoiding detection, setting traps, or just figuring out the best spot from which to launch an ambush. Unity also finally added a crouch button, which is actually crazy that it took this many AC games to arrive, plus proper wall leaning, cover swapping, and a new cover kill, which while satisfying is a bit OP, as you can pretty much hide around a corner and take everyone out, despite the fact you've clearly been spotted. They also added a disguise ability where you can briefly mimic someone's appearance, which in theory is a cool idea, but is pretty strange in practice. One of the big reasons though that Unity stealth stands out is down to Paris itself. It's dense and layered, filled with packed streets, multi-story buildings with multiple entrances, interiors you can actually move through, and even some underground catacombs to get around unnoticed. The crowds also play a much bigger role here than in previous games. Paris is absolutely swarming with people, and blending in with them actually works. It really incorporates the hiding in plain sight feel, and properly encourages you to think about your approach, rather than just running in the front door and hoping for the best. Unity was also the first AC game to introduce black box missions, and these really help the game's stealth stand out. Every assassination has multiple infiltration points, optional objectives, and opportunities to get creative, whether that's sneaking in through a rooftop, poisoning someone at a party, or dropping down from above like a total badass. But even outside of the main story, there's a ton of side content built with stealth in mind. The heists are basically mini stealth challenges, Paris stories that give you loads of freedom in how you approach them, and a lot of the stealth content you can actually play online with your friends when it works. It all adds up to a world that constantly gives you reasons to experiment with stealth, and not just during the main assassinations. I think what really holds Unity back though, despite everything great I've listed so far, is that it just doesn't work all of the time. I'd say stealth in Unity maybe works 90% of the time as it should, but the cover system in particular can be a real pain to use, and occasionally, and this is parkour related but ties into stealth, Arno won't always do what you tell him to, thus ruining your stealth attempt, and there are a handful of other minor niggles too. It's a shame because the stealth in Unity is undeniably pretty great. The tools are varied and awesome, the passive mechanics have some solid ideas, Paris is the perfect playground, and the content is clearly designed around stealth. It's all just not as clean as it should be, making me give it a very respectable 8.5 out of 10, and its spot in 3rd place. And now we come to the game hailed by Ubisoft as the return to the roots, Assassin's Creed Mirage. We'll start with all of our tools, and straight off the bat, Mirage gives us some really satisfying throwing knives, and in fact, if you're mid-air, you can use these in slow motion too, and these truly are the staple of the game. Other tools include the standard smoke bombs, a blow dart, a noisemaker, as well as the brand new addition of a trap, which is essentially a proximity mine. Swapping between these tools is really smooth too, as Basim will sort of slow down time whilst you access your choice wheel, meaning you can react to a situation pretty quickly and seamlessly. The big difference in Mirage is that all of these tools can be upgraded with different perks, and not just a standard upgrade like more powerful, but offering different attributes altogether. The throwing knives can make enemies disintegrate, the trap can be turned into poison, the noisemaker turn flammable, and much more. The good thing about Mirage is that you can choose throughout these different tool upgrades, basically making different stealth playstyles, but you also have skills to upgrade Basim directly too, such as the chain assassination or extra tool capacity, and stealth changes and improves as the game progresses. Our eagle vision ultimately just works as it should, but the one change they made is that you can now see enemies' line of sight, adding a further dimension to the game's stealth and how not to get caught. They did also include an eagle for Basim too, named Enkidu, and it works just as it did in Valhalla, but this was something I did find myself using more often in Mirage, as stealth is the focus of the game. Now, the most controversial new addition is the Assassin's Focus, which sees you teleporting to and assassinating up to a max of 5 enemies. You can even use this ability mid-air, which just looks absolutely insane, as well as using it for getting up to difficult to reach spots nice and quickly, changing your approach for certain sections entirely. Whilst it's not very Assassin's Creed, I actually personally don't mind this. If you want to use it, great, go for it, it certainly makes the game easier, and if it's not for you, you can just forget that it exists. Notoriety also makes a comeback, which will rise when if you're spotted committing certain actions like stealing or attacking enemies. You can remove your notoriety by either taking down posters, bribing someone, or killing the Interceptor, the warrior sent after you if you hit the max notoriety level, which especially at the beginning of the game can be pretty tricky to take down, so it's worth trying to actually play this game stealthily and not make too much noise. They also added eavesdropping back into Mirage 2, something that hadn't been seen in the more recent AC games up until Shadows, and whilst it's only used in missions occasionally, nor is it anything too game-changing, it aged to the Assassin's Creed fantasy, and ultimately it makes sense that it's been re-included. Now that is a lot to play with, but everything comes together for one of the strongest stealth mechanics of the entire series. I was and still am genuinely quite impressed with how the team from Ubisoft Bordeaux implemented stealth into Mirage, and all of this from within AC Valhalla's build. However, that doesn't mean it's perfect. Mirage promoted itself as having black box missions, where you're essentially given a target to assassinate and you can approach them in a variety of ways. However, the missions they actually claim to be black box missions in many cases aren't. In actuality, these are just well-designed set pieces, and when you do manage to reach your target, there is usually, and sadly, only one way of actually taking them out. The biggest negative of the game in general is that Mirage has the worst combat in the entire series. It's incredibly simple and just doesn't work very well, you'll find enemies at times don't even react to being hit, and the reason I mention this is because it's a motive as to why stealth is the way to go in this game. After all that though, I think if you're a fan of stealth in Assassin's Creed, its blend of old and new ACU stealth mechanics is going to seriously impress you, and I'm scoring it a very solid 9 out of 10. I just replayed it at the beginning of the year, and with the big parkour update and Valley of Memory DLC around the corner, if you've never played it before, why not check out my review on screen now and down in the description. Now this is likely controversial, but yes, taking that #1 place is the ever so underrated Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Unity stealth was pretty great, however Syndicate's is even better, with a lot of stealth elements from Unity being transferred and improved. Tools have somewhat been changed. You've got the standard berserk darts and smoke bombs, but you've also got the new voltaic bombs, essentially shocking and stunning enemies, and instead of the phantom blade from Unity, they've opted for throwing knives, which feel fantastic and are very much the bread and butter of your stealth. In terms of passive mechanics, the ability to whistle has now returned, which was absent from Unity, and once you do manage to hit that assassination button, the animations will be different dependent on whether you're standing or crouching, something that almost every Assassin's Creed was never able to do. Hiding in plain sight is also pretty great. The crowds are more stable than they were in Unity and much more usable than previous games, where you can actually draw them into certain areas for you to move around unseen in. An example of this is in one of the missions, you send a bunch of passengers to the wrong station platform just so you can use the crowd to sneak closer to your target. The detection system is improved too. You'll actually be able to see when crouching how much noise you're making, and the NPCs are also better at reacting as well, so if one guard gets alerted, then even others within a certain radar will move into stealth mode, rather than some AC games where you'd find NPCs just staring at the walls for no reason. There is even the kidnapping feature, where you can ultimately take someone hostage and use them to keep you invisible and inconspicuous, as long as you don't get too close to guards and brush past them. This personally is a really cool mechanic, and something I'd absolutely love to be explored in a future Assassin's Creed game. And London itself is brilliantly designed for stealth. It has dense streets, rooftops and interior spaces, but also wide roads to make a quick getaway, with the world giving you tons of options to approach your targets in different ways. Eagle vision is also in Syndicate 2, not just letting you tag your enemies, but also showing you parts of the environment like doors, lifts and other useful objects, as well as it being useful for specific missions as well, showing footprints and phantoms of targets' last known positions. This would stay in effect so long as Jacob and Evie don't run and get into a fight, rather than Unity's Eagle Vision, which you'd have to keep pressing again and again and again. To top it all off though, Syndicate also gives us the best black box missions in the series. There are tons of these scattered throughout the game, ranging from infiltrating castles to sneaking around a palace, with one of my favourite missions being the one in the insane asylum where you pretend to be a corpse, get wheeled out into the operating theatre and then jump out and kill your target. Honestly, these are some of the best missions Assassin's Creed has ever given us, and easily the best part of the whole game. Overall, Stealth in Syndicate is just a really well-oiled machine. London is designed in a way that aids our abilities, they added some new features which work really well, and then improved on old features too. If I could make one change, it would just be that I'd like to be able to have my hood up at any time, but other than that, for me it's the best stealth system in the whole series, sitting at the top of the tower with a score of 9.5 out of 10. Well done, Syndicate. Across nearly 2 decades, AC Stealth has evolved massively. From the social blending of AC1 and the Ezio trilogy, more tools introduced into Black Flag and Rogue, the pinnacle with dense crowd mechanics of Unity and Syndicate, the downgraded system of the RPG trilogy, Mirage's fantastic blend of old and new mechanics, and now the awesome system we have in AC Shadows. Some stealth systems work brilliantly, others not so much, but they all shaped what Assassin's Creed stealth is today. But Assassin's Creed isn't just about hiding in bushes and throwing smoke bombs. If you want to see me rank the parkour in every game, that video is on screen now. Do let me know what your favourite stealth system is in the comments below, subscribe for more, and I will catch you legends in the next one. Until then.